The president of Korea announces the end of the world after a zombie-inducing asteroid hits Japan, turning people into bloodthirsty, flesh-eating ghouls. The apocalypse begins, and panic spreads everywhere. No one knows what to do or where to run, but there's one guy who is more than prepared. He has his own safe shelter in another world and has been waiting a long time to smash some zombie asses. That guy is our protagonist, Music Sanjo. Months ago, Sanjo and his friends played Sura, the virtual survival game that was the most difficult ever created. The game was so intense and complicated, music, that most players stopped playing it entirely. Sanjo's group abandoned him with the ultimate betrayal, never logging in again. He was left all alone, playing and streaming Music the game, facing all kinds of monsters and becoming the best. Tired of his life, one day, Music our boy took off his headset and deleted all his public streams. Sanjo focused on his life as a chef and found a cute girl, Music, as his favorite customer. As a joke, he decides to say status window in real life and is stunned when he actually sees a blue screen floating Music before his eyes. The screen displays his stats. They are the same as in the game he used to play. With one difference, he has a new skill called Private Portal. Upon testing this skill, Sanjo materializes a person-sized teleportation gate. His mind struggles to comprehend the dangers of this new discovery, because if the game is real, then the meteor that started the apocalypse is also Music on its way. Frantically browsing the web, Sanjo stumbles upon an article about the imminent fall of the asteroid. He refuses to accept that the game's events are happening in real life. Our guy watches the portal before his eyes. First, he got confirmation of the asteroid, and now, this teleportation gate, which confirms that something is Music wrong. Hesitantly, he wonders if he should really go in. With no powers, no plans, and no money, he contemplates the idea of crossing to the other side. In the Music end, he reflects on a few things, and makes the nearest ladle he can find. He sticks it into the portal to get an idea of what's on the other side. Scooping up some dirt, he realizes he's not in a labyrinth stage from the game. That's good, but he also starts wondering if this portal will lead him to another place on Earth. After packing up to prepare for the journey, he hypes himself up to finally go in. In the next scene, the guy crosses the portal and discovers the beauty on the other side. It's a landscape with nothing urban in sight. The first thing he notices is how cold the weather is compared to usual. With no signal on his phone, he figures that he's trapped in some kind of remote area that no one will easily get to. In short, he's stuck here. Taking out a marker, he marks one of the trees with the number 0. It's a smart move on his part so he doesn't get lost too deep in his exploration. He starts walking and walking, but the trek takes a toll on him. The forest seems endless with nothing in sight. Just as this guy was praying for something interesting to happen, a creature watches him from nearby. Instantly, this thing pounces like a predator and scares our guy. Luckily, it's just a beautiful valley deer and not some flesh-eating monster. An interesting detail is that the system automatically identified this unique creature for him, confirming that this place is, indeed, separate from the realm of Earth. The creature observes him before running off without a word. Not that he expected it to talk or anything, but you get the idea. Even our protagonist thinks it's weird that it just left like that. The good thing is the deer wasn't aggressive. However, things are going to get very ugly if he runs into bloodthirsty monkeys or wild boars. Another interesting detail is that the valley deer didn't even exist in the Sura game. Right after getting here, he had a strong hunch that this realm is related to survival, life, and its concepts. Pulling out a blade, he keeps walking, preparing for anything that might pop out and scare him. So far, he has denied the reality of a looming disaster to wipe out humanity. But just when he was about to give up, he found it. His eyes fell upon the glowing sun apple, a mystical fruit he plucked from the tree. First, he wonders if it's okay to bite it, then takes an actual bite and experiences a change immediately. The system informs him that his stamina has been restored and his body glows with a yellow aura. Its effects are exactly the same as the sun apple juice they used to drink in the game, with one more detail that serves as the final confirmation. Now, our guy is convinced that something terrible is about to happen. Also, it was right next to a goblin dropping, which means he must be careful. Sanjo sighs with worry, trying to build his morale, but despite his beliefs, he now knows the end of the world is coming. After experiencing the effects of the portal gates, he stepped out of them and returned to his original world. Here, Sanjo began to come up with solutions. He wanted to be ready for the approaching apocalypse. So, the first thing he did was review all the game recordings and store them on a personal hard drive. Conveniently, he had streamed the game every time he played it, so he could easily save that data, though he never expected to use it this way. One day, news of an asteroid fall reached him. Japan's destruction would begin in 32 days, along with the start of the apocalypse. Until then, he decided to prepare because the game, unfortunately, was full of the worst possible mechanics. The craziest and most troublesome of them all was something called the Iron Death disease. This little phenomenon caused all metal on Earth to corrode and be destroyed, buildings reduced to dust, and it aided the zombie invasion hours after it occurred. With the destruction of metal in modern society, humanity was sent back to the Stone Age. The Iron Death disease would eventually disappear in the game, but the main problem was that it lasted for literally one whole year. Still, thus, the impending Iron Death disease didn't mean much to our protagonist, who had a surefire solution to access his private portal thanks to his newly acquired ability. Of course, Sanjo had a strong suspicion that the disease wouldn't be able to pass through the portal. After concluding his analysis, he invested all the money he had saved to buy premium-level gear. The protagonist was about to enter a real-time Call of Duty-style zombie apocalypse lobby, so he got all the necessary equipment and supplies to survive. Checking the forums at night, Sanjo was disappointed by the few people using their awakened abilities for a life of crime and pleasure. Morning came, and he bought more supplies to support his eventual mission. On the way back, he even bought a hunting bow for Shidi. While doing all this, he faced a realization. Sanjo thought that maybe he was overdoing it with all this. Maybe he was getting too ahead of himself and acting in haste. Still, he thought that he could recover all his savings eventually, even if he was wrong. With his morning errands completed, he returned home and put a closed sign on his shop. Sanjo was lost in his thoughts when he suddenly heard someone's voice. It was Teoshin. She asks, concerned about the closed shop. He tells her it's just for remodeling work, which makes her wonder if he had earned a lot of money. Sanjo quickly ends the conversation, saying he has work to do, but suddenly she stops him and tries to ask him a question. The girl ends up blushing and doesn't actually voice her request, turning to leave. Sanjo is curious about her question, and although he could have easily pressed her for an answer, he went back to his business. Once inside, he swore to take things seriously and work on what really mattered. The protagonist really said, "I'm going to ignore bad girls and really focus." He commands the portal to open. Reflecting on his actual playstyle, he could be called a strategist or a planner, a guy who loves using strategies to overcome each stage. He wasn't exactly a powerful fighter, and relied mainly on his intelligence. The reason is quite simple. In Sura, there's a complicated way to gain stats. You don't just get them by leveling up, you only acquire them by hunting and exploring. Right now, our guy is in the other realm, trying to perfect his archery skills. Clearly, with no prior practice or teaching, the protagonist uses YouTube tutorials to teach himself. Sanjo gets into the correct stance and prepares to shoot. A scene from the game flashes through his experience, until finally, he releases the shot. The arrow flies toward the target and hits the mark. The protagonist is genuinely surprised by his talent, to the point of thinking he's the chosen one. However, from how sore his hand is, Sanjo realizes that his real disadvantage is his strength. That's why he wants to focus on working out and increasing his physical stamina. With the basic preparations done, he would now move on to the next step. He immediately needed to take care of two things. First, to map out a proper way to hunt monsters. Second, to build a base where he could store his supplies without worry. However, at that moment, he had no weapons and absolutely no supplies, as they were in the process of being delivered. Until then, he hunted for golden apples and was going crazy over his luck in finding them. Having marked a few spots, he taught himself how to prepare for the coming apocalypse. That early preparation is the very reason why he survived for so long in Sura. While scouting his surroundings, Sanjo stumbles upon goblin waste. He had been looking for it with just one simple objective. The thing about goblins is that they love to move in a pack. The fact that there was only a single piece of, literally, droppings, tells him there's only one nearby. Inspector Promax interacts with the waste, and concludes that the goblin must be an outcast. Sanjo knows that this will be his golden ticket. He has to hunt it down as best as he can. As night fell, his search for the lone goblin continued. He heard wolf howls nearby, which meant he was getting closer to the valley. And then he saw it, the very goblin he was looking for. Sanjo hid behind a tree, but he could see that. The thing looked exactly like the creatures from the game. Now, goblins are supposed to be the lowest level of monster. Their only weapons are spears and poison darts. They're best known for mutilating their opponents and torturing them. That is precisely why our boy chose a long-range weapon as his first option, a bow. By the looks of it, the goblin is old and in bad shape, holding no weapons, so Sanjo immediately draws his bow. He knows if he can remain calm, he'll be able to kill it. Upon releasing the string, the arrow goes through the goblin's arm, piercing it. Sanjo was aiming for the head, but is satisfied with the result. Pressing the advantage, he tries for a second shot, but the goblin throws a rock with such force that his weapon flies out of his hands. Sanjo realizes he's dealing with a mature and experienced goblin. They both ready their blades for hand-to-hand combat. The final showdown between Sun Jingu and Beirut begins. Wait, wrong story. Sanjo takes his knife and tries to slash at the goblin's side. The experienced goblin dodges and strikes our boy's kneecap quite hard. Taking the fight to the ground, Sanjo tackles the goblin, forcing it onto its back. Here, he has a clear advantage. Sanjo takes the blade and plunges it deep into the creature's chest, causing it to scream in pain. Finally, the light in its eyes fades. The first kill has been successful, and Sanjo gains 2 points for it. He can't even believe he pulled it off. Scanning the surroundings, he finds some guaca powder and vegetable oil nearby. In the game, combining them results in an ointment, but first, he needed to bury it fast. It's too dangerous to let this goblin rot outside, as the pack could find him and hunt Sanjo for it. Letting him rot is not a good idea either, as he would turn into something called a bone tracker. Sanjo finds a pair of red trout nearby. Sanjo's heart trembles as he realizes this is the moment he looks away. The protagonist discovers the creepiest owl monster staring at him intently. Before this segment, we return to Sanjo's game matches when he was a player. During his streams, he compiled a lot of valuable information about the game. Some chat members donated money just to get him deep into the good stuff. Sanjo got to the bottom of it and described his experience with goblins and kobolds last time. Avoiding the bone tracker is also essential, but the forest is home to 2 of the game's most dangerous creatures, werewolves and owlbears. Owlbears are territorial creatures, which means their existence creates harmony in the monster ecosystem. Recalling the streaming era, Sanjo felt warmth in his heart. There was one guy, Buyungman, who was always happy for him. The others were relaxed and somewhat weird, like the dog guy who barked in the chat and wouldn't stop typing for no apparent reason. Oddly enough, Sanjo wonders why he is having such happy memories. Is it because he is facing the embodiment of literal horror, a creature that was about to end his life? Sanjo refuses to accept reality. It is as if those memories are telling him to focus. He uses every moment at his disposal to think of a plan. He already knows that owlbears are tremendously fierce and tear apart everything in front of them. The fact that the creature is still without doing anything implies it is not that hungry, but the most unsettling thing right now is that it has invaded the red trout's territory. With all these important factors considered, Sanjo realizes there is probably only one way to escape this nightmarish situation. Turning his feet, he reminds himself that he is still Kimut in his mind, even though his body has Sanjo's short build. Clenching his teeth, he challenges the monster to face him, a final declaration of his will to survive. The creature stares him down, initiating its terrifying first attack. The owlbear is especially skilled at hunting at night, but its main weakness is direct sunlight. Having memorized its patterns from the game, Sanjo knows he just needs to execute well to save his life. Timing the beast's attack, Sanjo masterfully dodges the swipe, and at the same time, thinks about how to create some kind of light effect to terrify the monster. Bursting with speed, he runs up the creature's enormous arm before pulling out a flashlight and blinding it at point-blank range. This effect is so traumatic, even for a predator like the owlbear, that it's left completely blinded. The next scene cuts to our guy sprawled out on his bed as his alarm goes off. He knows he has to get up, even though his body is sore from the previous night. Sanjo passed out right after returning home. His last memory is of him running for his life after blinding the monster. With his luck, he ran into an owlbear right after facing a goblin. The protagonist doesn't want to go through that again and tries to get up to eat something. He faceplants on the floor with a thud. He realizes his legs are destroyed after all that cardio. Luckily, he still has those golden apples from the other realm. Sanjo grabs one and takes a bite, instantly rejuvenating his stamina with its effects. He finally feels more alive than ever, wondering if he should now properly fill his stomach. But after cleaning himself up a bit, the protagonist runs into Theyu Chini again. She came to eat at another restaurant and runs into him by coincidence. Sanjo wasn't looking for company, but she sat there because she likes having an eating companion. Mikyon quickly asks him if he tried opening the status window. Her enthusiastic attitude makes Sanjo realize this must be the topic she wanted to discuss last time, but that he didn't dare to say. Nyan shows him the news and assures him it's real. Some awakened players are using their powers to rob others. Sanjo is a little surprised by her confidence to ask something like that directly. He responds by lying and saying that nothing appeared. The truth is that Sanjo feels he's doing the right thing by keeping the others in the dark about his status. First, because his ability is strategic and not combat-focused. It's something he can use to its fullest advantage instead of sharing it with others. At this moment, not even his personal safety is guaranteed. If he ends up revealing his hand to the lady in the red dress, which in this case is her, then things could really end badly for him. It's a smart move, however. The guy is intrigued by the interest Neon shows in asking about the awakening. Then, a surprise comes from her. She hesitates, and even admits to having lied. Sanjo assumes she has good intentions, and even reassures her by telling her that she doesn't have to say anything. He encourages her, saying there's still time, and heads home shortly after their conversation. Finally, his delivery packages arrived. The things he had ordered came, so he no longer had to worry about supplies. He moved his things to the rooftop, and only left the most important items on the second floor. During his preparation, he selected a bunch of items needed for the day's mission, things like gas masks, suits, and other gear. For his next mission, our guy has the intention of finding a suitable place to serve as a hideout. He needs to build a base of operations, hence the purpose of the axe. After going through the portal, Sanjo comes across his first clue to finding a hideout. He accidentally discovered a goblin cave while searching for the old goblin. Remembering its location, he travels to that same place and finds it. It's a rather convenient site to hide, perfect for his plans. However, first, he needed to check what kind of monsters lived there. Music soon. Sanjo scans the surroundings and finds small kobold tracks passing through. In fact, this discovery is cause for celebration, because these music guys don't pose any problem. Sanjo had already come up with a plan to deal with any low-level monsters from the start, so music, he had nothing to worry about. The interesting thing about kobolds is that they are nocturnal creatures. At that moment, they were music, asleep. So our guy's plan was to suffocate them inside. First, he gathers a pile of firewood by chopping some branches. Music. Afterwards, he places the collected pile at the entrance. The next idea is to douse it with gasoline. Sanjo thought he was going to clear this mission without any issues, because the only thing he had to do now was set it on fire. Music. But then, shockingly, he heard their noises. They emerged from their great slumber and immediately eyed him as their next meal. Sanjo greets them softly before pulling out his axe and lunging into attack. With a single slash, he cuts music, both monsters across the neck, killing them instantly. The reason they fell so easily was because of music, their earlier drowsiness. Thanks to these consecutive kills, the system rewards him with a level up and 4 points. Next, Sanjo tosses music the lighter onto the firewood. Shortly after, the fumes begin to seep inside. In the game Sura, low-level monsters had a very obvious weakness. They were vulnerable to new things, and this was one of them. Music. Our guy waited outside with a gas mask on. Although he could have tried to burn them directly, music, this method was even more effective for clearing them out. The sleeping kobolds woke up frantically and came running out to save themselves. Sanjo intentionally chose this strategy to weaken their bodies and create confusion during their escape. The moment they came out, his goal was to take advantage while they were weakened to eliminate them at once. Although he expected at least 5 to come out, Sanjo is surprised to see that only 4 came out. This is different from their usual group of 7. Taking aim at one of the kobolds, Sanjo kills it without hesitation, declaring that only 3 remain. The remaining 3 run towards him, doing what little they can to attack. But our boy was already ready with his axe. This man was hitting home runs with his weapon and knocking them down. Another kobold tries to attack, but the powerful deadly fart spray blinds it at point-blank range. Before it could do anything, Sanjo cuts its head off. With only one final one remaining, our boy stares down their leader, who trembles in fear. He has become the hunter and declares its end, promising to make good use of their hideout. The massacre finally ends with Sanjo exhausted on the ground. His lack of stamina is the real drawback right now, even though they were easy to beat. The system's stats, interestingly, are no different from the game's. Even the debuff section, for the exhaustion status and the fact that points don't increase upon leveling up, are also the same. Still, leveling up will eventually unlock shop items for him, so that's already a plus on its own. Right now, the most convenient thing is that he can use a private space of his own. But as much as our boy wanted to have a clean environment inside, he was disappointed by the mess the kobolds left behind. With a hideout secured, the cleaning operations began. This guy had to clean up so much goblin filth that he ended up exhausted. Cleaning this much felt like a real hassle, especially after getting through a serious fight. Sanjo cursed those disgusting creatures for living in trash. Still, he had nothing to worry about anymore. With a new base of operations, Sanjo returns to his side of the world whenever he needs to take out the trash. That was a plus, but still, it took him a very long time to clean everything. What surprises him the most is discovering how easy it is to use items between dimensions. So he used a pipe from one side and activated it on the other, amazed at how well it worked. Hours of effort later, the place is now sparkling clean. The next thing he needs is to remove the bloodstains and start pouring concrete to make storing things easier. Think about the complications of mortar and using sandwich-type panels. But the only good thing about this crappy cave is that it's full of luminous and flammable stones. These are beginner-level stones in the game, but there are so many here that it's a huge advantage. Sanjo now has a reason to excavate this place properly after the construction. The next day, the protagonist is at his limit. He's working so hard every day that his whole body aches. Checking his arm, he's surprised by how few cuts he suffered. The items he collected from the other realm are resting on the table. Sanjo wonders if he should take the opportunity to prepare an ointment. The method is quite simple. Mix guaca powder and vegetable oil in equal parts. Then you stir it. And there you have it. A low-level ointment for basic healing. Thanks to our guy's background in cooking, the chef has an easier time making these things. Just applying the ointment to his arm already feels like a breakthrough. However, Sanjo is worried, realizing that he might have to do this over and over again. He contemplates raising his stats by focusing on the fundamentals, but on the other hand, he's risking his life so much that he could die even before the damn apocalypse arrives. Although that would be funny, Sanjo doesn't want to take the risk, and starts thinking about using a more convenient weapon, like a gun. Suddenly, an idea clicks in his head. There's definitely something he could use, separate from the game's main story, is its background or lore, but the big question is, will that lore even apply to the coming apocalypse? Using that information, Sanjo organizes his thoughts, hoping that the lore events will occur because they would benefit him in unimaginable ways. With a new plan in mind, this guy goes up to the rooftop for the construction materials he ordered. Opening the portal, our guy starts throwing the bags to the other side, one by one. After that, he went to pick other items, and went down to the first floor. He was about to move a bunch of packages there, when suddenly, that same girl showed up again. Sanjo starts to wonder if she's getting a little too comfortable with him. Our protagonist tells her this directly to her face, making her feel embarrassed. He reassures her by saying that he's just busy with remodeling work, and she believes he's telling the truth. What surprises her is that he hasn't come in for his usual haircut, which he gets every 3 months. Sanjo remembers this is true and also realizes he needs a trim for his next expedition, so he stops what he's doing and goes to her barbershop. There, our protagonist looks like a Korean version of Moist CR, 1 Tikal. He asks her to shave it all off. The Buso arc, LOL. Surprised, she decides to grant his request. What intrigues her is how much wider Sanjo's shoulders have gotten. I mean, let's be honest. No girl would ever say that for real. He tells her that he's been working out, while Mikion talks about how the status window is related to the game's survival life. The Awakened are people who have played the game at least once. All this time, Sanjo pretends to know nothing and agrees with everything, but he also asks with curiosity about her source of information. Suddenly, a guy covered in tattoos enters the shop, revealing that he's there for new information. Hilariously, it turns out this guy had fought against Sanjo in the past, but only in a singing competition. Our guy gets enraged when he finds out that this clown is her source of information. The blonde guy tells her that a certain someone deleted the streams and is keeping all the information for himself. It's an awkward moment because this guy even announces that he's trying to reveal the player's real location. Sanjo is very curious about this mysterious person. Enoch mentions the name Kimbab Jojo, which was Sanjo's username. This complicates things even more, because now our guy knows that there are people genuinely trying to hunt him down. Inako forces the young man to be brave and join his team. Sanjo thinks the whole situation is stupid. The only reason he deleted the video was simply because he was disappointed. He never had time to think about personal benefits. Anyway, this guy is a know-it-all who shows off a lot. He even insults Sanjo for abandoning everything without publicly posting information from his streams, not knowing that the same guy he's hunting is sitting right in front of him. Sanjo wonders if the community's reaction is the same. This makes him wonder if he should really change course and share information. He gets up personally to confront Enoch, scolding him for ruining his haircut in the middle of a session. Enoch tries to act like a tough guy with our boy, but Sanjo glares at him with killer eyes, ordering him to get out quickly, unless he wants to be humiliated again. Intimidated, the guy leaves the shop, while the girl says goodbye to him. Mikion is relieved. Seeing her distressed, our boy asks for her number, just because he thinks this guy is a real clown who could put her life in danger. Back at home, our boy looks like a model with his new look. He first focuses on his username and decides to search for information on the forum. What he finds is alarming. The entire forum is flooded with insults and curses directed at him. He was receiving endless hate until he ended up finding Enak's username. The clown even used a nickname despite having full verification accessible on the website. His entire page was flooded with negative comments about our boy, a true hater in spirit, body, and soul. Sanjo turns off his computer, knowing it's the only appropriate reaction. He wasn't mentally affected, just disappointed. But then his mind felt a strange sense of calm as he activated the portal. He spent the next 2 days refining his hideout, working on mining and construction. The pickaxe helped, and then he spread the mortar with water, smoothing it out each day. With the work done, he goes outside and waits for the mortar to dry. During this time, he contemplates music, the lonely moon. Suddenly, Sanjo realized he had to fight back against this injustice and level of cruelty. He's not some kind of hero, and he isn't looking for a grand purpose in life. His ultimate goal is simply survival. That's the only thing that matters. Music. As he's stealing his resolve, he turns around and is startled. A bone lurker is approaching with clanking sounds. Music. Sanjo was already angry, so he finally finds a target to focus his music rage on. A massive explosion follows, engulfing everything in flames. The next time our boy wakes up, music, he's covered in scratches. He doesn't even know what the hell just happened, but then he remembers the image of the bone lurker. The part that intrigues him is how he managed to survive a point-blank explosion, but there's an answer to that, too. Right after seeing the bone lurker, Sanjo knew it was going to blow to pieces, so he ran. But the detonation still caught him, hitting him hard enough to knock him unconscious, but not kill him. However, music, that split-second decision, also cost him dearly. Sanjo's entire right side is riddled with embedded shards. Gathering what little strength he has left, he calls up the status window for help. Music. The system's stats have dropped due to his current condition, but thanks to the creature's destruction, he receives points for defeating it. A throbbing headache begins to take hold, affecting his senses. Music. Using his last ounce of energy, he orders the portal to open. In the next scene, music, the first thing he does is treat his wounds. This involves removing the creature's bone fragments. It was painful to remove them, and it hurt like hell to do so. The ointment worked wonders, helping him stop the bleeding. He checks his condition after bandaging himself music up. As a result, Sanjo ended up passing out. That was his limit for the day. The next morning, dawn breaks and our boy wakes up, believing he's on the verge of death, at any moment. His immediate concern is to check if his wounds have healed, so he opens the status window. The system seems to indicate he's okay, which is good. He gets up and wonders how the hell that damned bonehead found him in the first place. For starters, the forest is really vast, so it's not unusual for creatures to come out of hiding just like that. This puts him on alert, and he decides to focus more on honing his perception stat, which would improve his detection skills. The only way to increase those stats in the game is by using stat points. Of course, these are obtained through hunting or exploration experience. Another way to improve stats is to use gear or weapons that boost the user's abilities. The only problem is that Sura sucks as a game, and its difficulty is through the roof. Even to get simple stat items, one has to face dangerous monsters far above their own level. This means facing hellish beasts just to get a weapon. After defeating monsters, skills can also be unlocked. Especially high-level monsters drop them under certain conditions, but not all skills are suitable for every player. Now, Sanjo looks for a safe way to get items that increase stats. He decides to review the recordings of the game's backstory he had visited. These stories take place before the asteroids fall on Earth. This means visiting those places could get you special items before the apocalypse hits, but that's just a theory, a video game theory, without fighting stronger monsters. He also spends the next few hours reading past information and learns about 3 important locations where the backstories took place: the Russian ship, the Goblin, and another one, the Mount Jerry Orc incident, the fastest of them all. According to the recording, the Orc was discovered on the 26th day, so he must leave on the 25th to find it sooner. With his next mission, a la vista, our guy grabs his phone and realizes Mikyun is calling at an odd hour. In the next scene, the two are in a coffee shop. She asks about his condition, questioning why he chose to wear a long-sleeve shirt in the middle of summer. The guy has to hide his injuries and realizes this woman is much more observant than she appears. She thinks he's upset about the incident at the store, but Sanjo denies it. She's happy to hear that, expressing how scared she felt. Sanjo reminds her about last winter, when this guy caused trouble using an illegally modified crane. Then he started to pick fights with weaker people. In short, he's a piece of trash. Mikyun is shocked to hear this, since she had no prior information on the guy. But our guy begs her to stay away from him. Sanjo then asks directly, "Why did you ask him out?" The cute girl leans into his ear and reveals that she is awakened. Sanjo has no idea why she revealed something so sensitive to him. Playing it cool, he acts jealous that he didn't have the same luck. She feels bad for lying to him, but he assures her it's okay. As the meeting ends, he gets up to leave. Sanjo is happy that she entrusted him with that information and admits that he feels better thanks to her words. Before leaving, he drops a small hint by mentioning his interest in the survival game, with the clear intention of studying it thoroughly. Back home, Sanjo admits that he's genuinely happy to find people with good character like her. He checks the stores and ends up buying cool drones and even a rental car to get around. Then he goes straight to bed to recover for the next day, and the next day arrives. As soon as dawn breaks, he begins to craft materials to hunt orcs. At his base, he crushes and refines ignition stones. These must be handled with precision, otherwise, they ignite with the wrong impact. He then turns his attention to the lightstone. Mining them blinds you with their light, but they're valuable, so he continues. After grinding both, he creates a powder from of them. With that, he completes his gear for the mission. Afterwards, he pours sugar, gasoline, and organic solvents. The last ingredient is a hardening agent to solidify the ignition stone. Because his dimensional portal has flexible coordinates, he can set up a desk without difficulty. Before leaving, he packs all his gear into the rental car. Satisfied with his purchase and with the materials secured, Sanjo heads to Juri Mountain to kill orcs. He arrives at the Jungri camp parking lot before 12 in the morning, using the remaining time to mentally prepare and protect his gear. When the clock strikes 12 in the morning, his large-scale hunt begins. 2 hours later, the rain worsens, and the fog it creates makes it difficult to see ahead. He wonders where the orcs are coming from, since he has already inspected the camp. He believes the precursor phenomenon doesn't happen in real life, but suddenly his thoughts are interrupted by a loud roar. In a panic, he looks behind him, where the sound came from. A dark, shadowy figure appears, approaching. Our protagonist realizes it's an orc, and not just any orc. It's a red orc subspecies, which means a skill drop is guaranteed. Sanjo tries to calm himself while launching a flare. If everything goes according to his plan, he can definitely capture it. The method he devised for dealing with orcs is simple. The first step is to use the orc's aggression to draw its attention. When the orc is distracted by the flare's flash and starts attacking it with its axe, that's the moment to strike. He aims at the orc, instantly opens the portal, and throws a flashbang. Due to the intense light, the orc will take about 20 seconds to regain its vision. This creates a race against time. Then, he destroys the orc's muscles, which have been weakened due to the status effect, to drastically reduce its mobility. The orc screams in rage and swings its axe toward our hero, to crush him. But our protagonist quickly ducks just as the axe is about to strike him, dodging the attack. Then, he takes his knife and stabs the orc's foot. The moment the orc's foot is stabbed, it screams in pain and falls to its knees. When they are at the same eye level, our protagonist shoves a pre-made can of fire inside the orc's mouth. As soon as the can goes in, it explodes. Our boy starts to celebrate his victory. Suddenly, the orc's fist punches him, sending him flying through the air. He gets up, knowing he shouldn't have let his guard down so soon. He sees the orc walking towards him with its upper body in flames, but it doesn't look like it's going to survive. He is convinced that he is about to be torn to pieces by the orc. Just then, his system notifies him that he has leveled up to level 3 and has received 10 more points. He obtains the skill Will to Survive. He stands up and tells himself that he can't handle this. He wonders where the loot item is as a light shines on his wrist. He looks at his wrist, and the item he gets is a perception watch. He sighs in relief because it would have been a hassle to find the item in the rain. He approaches the dead orc with its head smoking, wondering what to do with it. He thinks that the Jiren orc incident was under embargo. Then he wonders if it is right to reveal the information, as the situation might get worse. He remembers what Mikion told him, about the awakened being people who have played that game at least once, which can only mean one thing. There must be several thousand people who have awakened. Even if only a small minority of them are guys like Ohak, they will cause the collapse of the system and laws for personal gain, and will cause chaos to break out. Right now, the biggest problem is that he can't leave the dead orc alone, or else it will turn into a bone creeper and start harming people by tomorrow. Suddenly, a thought crosses his mind. Why didn't he think that he could also turn into a zombie? Even if he is awakened, he could still get infected with the spores and become a zombie. He can't think clearly about what. Unable to make a decision, he opens the portal while thinking about the few people who might have survived. It's certain that the will deserves an orderly end. Our guy starts digging a hole in the ground so he can bury the orc he just killed. He soon gets exhausted and wonders how he's going to get the orc inside. His newly acquired skill, Will to Survive, activates, triggered by his exhaustion, and it allows him to complete the task immediately. The hero soon begins to finish his work quickly, with no other choice but to work as fast as he can. He then throws the orc into the grave while being thankful for the skill. After that, he opens the portal and ends up inside a moving car. The side effect takes his body time to recover before he can return to his normal activities. The next day, he wakes up wondering if the weather he sees is real. According to the plan, he should have already established a line of defense. He looks at his phone, wondering if the remains of the red orc have already disappeared. He plans not to start anything today. It's just not the right time for him, and he decides to check the items that were delivered in the early morning. Inside the box are all the weapons he needs, although he can only use them like a club. Still, some items from the package are missing. He picks up a note that says some of the items he ordered were illegal to possess and couldn't get through customs. While he's busy checking the weapons he received, he hears another delivery truck and yells for them to leave the stuff at the door. There's a knock, making our guy wonder why the delivery person didn't hear him. He tries repeating it and then opens the door. It wasn't the delivery person, it was Mikion. She is there, explaining that they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and she wanted to talk to him about something. She holds a bag with some food and asks if he wants to eat ribaki with her. Now there are only 24 days left until the apocalypse arrives. Our guy can't believe that Mikion has finally visited his house. Clearly, he's nervous and can't stop blushing. After she serves the food, she tells him to eat before it gets cold, and he obliges. They soon finish eating, and he asks her what she wanted to talk about. She gets straight to the point, since he previously mentioned he was researching Saw, so she could talk about some important information regarding it. Well, music, that wasn't what our guy thought she came to discuss. He thought that maybe she wanted to go out with him, but he convinces himself that talking about apocalyptic stuff with her would be the best option right now, because he needs good company in tough times. Music. She quickly starts clearing the dishes while our guy prepares for a few more things. Music. He takes out his computer, even revealing to her that he has awakened, because finding out any other way wouldn't be the best. He starts by explaining the metallic death plague in detail, music, and that moving with a group of more than 6 people turns the group into an easy target for zombies. Grasping the perception of this is important for survival, which makes it the most important ability, music, among all of them. The name of the game is to survive. Just as he's about to explain more, she stops him. She talks about what Obenha said. Kim Buplover is getting a lot of criticism, music. So, why isn't he revealing information? Our guy doesn't really have an answer to her question and asks her to guess. Her assumption is that everyone has a reason and the circumstances justify it. Then, our guy tells her that he rejected their offer to join him, and she wonders why he would do that. He pulls out his phone to show her the reason. Music. It's a recording of them talking about kidnapping a girl, considering she was playing hard to get. Listening to that whole conversation infuriates her. She turns to Mikion, informing him of what will inevitably be revealed when the apocalypse comes, people's true colors. Music. Our hero guides her not to trust anyone, but she surprises him by suggesting they should team up together. Music. Our guy clenches his fist because he doesn't, she can just drop an answer. One of her goals includes reaching level 10 and unlocking the store before the tutorial, which poses a problem. In Sola, there's a system where the rank of the monsters that respawn changes according to the level. If she were to accompany him, she's destined to die in the worst way possible. He laughs nervously, wondering what she would do if he turned into a zombie. She assures him that he'll be fine and uses her trait to teleport to his dining table. She shows off her skill called Blink. She just has to dodge if he ever tries to bite her. He is surprised by her skill, but warns her not to show it to just anyone. Though she says she trusts him, enthusiastically, she suggests they'll be a great team if they don't turn into zombies. A while later, he's standing near some trees, thinking about how easy it was to build the fences. The first step was to hammer support posts into the ground to set them up. Then, he wrapped barbed wire around and secured them. After that, he installed infrareds in a couple of places, and his work was done. He looks at the finished work, praises himself, and is sure that he should at least earn a dexterity point. Because of this, Sanjo starts walking back, finishes the mortar work, and creates a defensive wall. Then, he decides to start moving packages. He finishes moving the boxes after a while. As he considers what to do next, he suddenly feels cold and sneezes. He realizes that the other world will be cold, and he'll soon have to take shelter there, so he needs to think of countermeasures. Our hero looks at the cave entrance and decides to build a door there, since just a curtain won't be enough. With every step, his to-do list keeps growing. Later, He stops by a carpenter's shop to make and buy different things. On his way back, he checks the places he'll loot during the 5 hours before the deadly metal plague spreads. While he's making the list, he's stopped by Jun, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. He's a divorced gym manager and has a little daughter. Our guy reads his expressions, and they don't look good. John doesn't care much, but he starts observing his body, which seems to be getting back into shape. So, our guy asks him what's wrong, to which he replies that it's obvious. He's upset because the world is going to end. The protagonist is surprised that he knows about it too. John asks if our protagonist believes in it. At first, John didn't believe it, until his friend started levitating using the superpower he was granted. The protagonist lies, saying he hasn't awakened, and the gym guy sighs sadly, saying that he hasn't awakened either. Now, his friend is going to the broadcast station to earn some money. The guy from the gym motions for our guy to sit next to him, and he realizes that soon everyone will know about the existence of the awakened. He changes the subject to something strange that happened, the Wid shooting. Sanjo couldn't believe what he was hearing, since he hadn't seen the news in the morning. He asks him to go look it up, but the post is immediately deleted. The media is now being controlled. John explains the follow-up news, how they tried to cover it up by saying it was a defector who carried out the shooting. Now, the area of the shooting has been closed to the public. Only the military and police can get access. Suddenly, our guy gets up, makes an excuse to leave, and starts running. Back at home, a shooting occurred right after the incident with the orc. All this makes him think that the government is involved, as their reaction made it clear. He opens a file on his computer and clicks on a video. Our guy is shocked to see many people knowing the exact time of the precursor phenomenon. He even eliminated the orc. But the shooting happened at the same time. As he overthinks it, he wonders if someone leaked the information to the government from the start and tried to take action, beginning with the first precursor phenomenon. Maybe they didn't step forward because they don't have an offensive trait. He's not sure who it is, but there's definitely someone behind the government. Sanjo wonders who that person could be. Music. He investigated and narrowed it down to 3 veteran players. After much thought, he ruled out the creator. Since they are bringing the game's movements into the real world, the game's creators are likely the villains. If the villain's music had government support, they never would have allowed him to kill the orc. He sketches 3 faces he considers the main suspects. He wonders if it's the number 1 survivor, and if his theory is true, he doesn't have to share this information with the government himself. Our guy leans back in his chair, wondering if the number 1 survivor is someone he actually, music, knew. He misses his veteran friends and decides to trust them for now. Besides that, sharing information wouldn't stop the coming catastrophe anyway, so he won't intervene yet. 2 days music later, he installs his door, and his pantry is ready. The first shelter is finished. He decides to install 2 logistics trays and then drill through the wall. But there's much less space than he imagined. Music. The basement waterproofing is already done, and he has been working on it little by little. He steps back, thinking he'll, music, figure it out when it's finished. In Phase 2, there is an important task he needs to do. Music, creating maps with his drone. While doing so, with his VR headset on and the drone in the air, he saw the shelter, music, from a middle point and began exploring the surroundings. Thanks to the drone, he was able to learn about the snowy fields to the northwest and an ocean to the south. The ocean had no monsters and plenty of prey, so he decides to set traps to catch fish. He examined the valley to study the ecosystem around the shelter. Suddenly, music, he sees the spot where he buried the owlbear, but the corpse is gone. He wonders if the big furball ate it. He doesn't form a judgment because there are many footprints nearby, most of them orcs, which makes it even more suspicious. He measures music, the distance between the valley and the shelter, which is about 1.5 kilometers, making the shelter more dangerous than he assumed. Knowing that goblins are nearby, he decides to bring the drone back. Shelter, because he can't afford to lose it. He manages to draw a good map and already knows what kind of animals are in the forest. The next thing he has to do is check all those areas himself, starting music with the nearest swamp. He wants to see if it's possible to farm there. Suddenly, the infrared sensor activates and he goes out. Knowing that they were goblins, by their footprints imprinted on the ground, our guy was already thinking about it. Music. So this creates a perfect opportunity for him. He wonders if this is because of his recently increased perception stat. Music. Even the smallest sound is super clear to him. After a while, he manages to spot some goblins without being detected. The perfect angle for an ambush presents itself. He takes out his spear and an arrow, music, and launches an attack at a goblin's head. The goblin drops dead, and our guy is surrounded by the other goblins who rush toward him to attack, but he quickly disposes of them, as if they were easy to kill. He kills 4 of them and then goes to attack the other remaining 4. Our guy gets surrounded by them, music, but he pulls something from his pocket, which makes the goblins instantly fall to their knees. While music, they are on their knees, our protagonist takes his knife and cuts off their heads. He took advantage of the goblins' exhaustion to win this battle, which even he couldn't believe actually worked. Music. Now, the number of days left until the apocalypse arrives is 21. While digging in the ground, our guy feels tired, and suddenly, his trait activates, and his body is once again filled with efficiency. He realizes that his ability isn't so useless after all. After a while, he finishes burying the goblins' corpses. Then he heads over to the loot he collected. First, he picks up the guaca fruit, which helps quite a bit, and restores stamina. There was a large amount of vegetable oil in the loot, which makes him think that maybe there's a harvest nearby. He checks the chief goblin's bag and is surprised to find a live toad inside. That toad is blue, which makes our guy wonder why they would carry a live toad instead of a dead one. Suddenly, the toad starts to sniff around and soon, music, he realizes. He realizes it was a paralyzing poison used by goblins. Instantly, he decides he must raise that toad no matter what. Not only does he find it super cute, but by being able to extract the poison, he will be able to build resistance to it by injecting himself. With the paralyzing poison, hunting will also become easier. Then, he decides to name the toad, calling it Jodok, with the intention of feeding it a lot. His system notifies him that the toad is now his property. He wonders if this is like a hidden trick added to reality. He starts overthinking and overanalyzing the situation. After that, he begins to explore and opens the dimensional door. He goes back and forth through that door until he finally completes his reorganization. Then, he immediately starts to inspect the surroundings and finds a spring he had accidentally missed with the drone. He looks at the water and realizes it's ordinary water, with nothing dangerous. He is surprised to find a hideout near his shelter, and right behind the spring, he finds a huaca tree and vegetable oil sprouts. He gathers the fruits and harvests a good amount of vegetable oil sprouts. Then, he leaves marks on the trees as he goes, so he won't forget the way to that place and starts to head back. In his apartment, he feeds his new pet. Hodo is raising his pet on the second floor of his apartment. For the moment, he couldn't leave Jodok in the hideout because it would die. Besides taking care of his pet, there were more things to do. The thing that took the most time was preparing the ointment, and he accidentally made too much. He doesn't know what to do with it. He can't give it to Mikion because she is also an awakened one. So, he decides to give it to John. At John's place, he drinks a protein shake, and our guy hands him the ointment, making him wonder what it is. Our protagonist explains that he made too much, and that it's supposed to be good for wounds. John jokes, asking if he's into marketing now, and our hero denies it. Still, John thanks him for the ointment, and for sending him information related to Sura, but our guy thanks him for having told him about the shooting incident. Music. Then, Sanjo notices the gym is too quiet, to which his friend explains that everyone left to make plans after music. The guy from the broadcast spread the information he knew, so now, they're deciding to make a base there. Our hero warns him that having too many people is a sign of danger, but John simply doesn't want to abandon his members. He's too loyal to them. Then, John wonders what Sanjo plans to do, and he just evades it. Music. Suddenly, they hear a scream, and Sanjo finds it familiar. He looks down from the building and sees Mikion on the ground. They both run to her, wondering what happened. She explains that she was attacked but couldn't see who Music did it. John immediately goes out to check the building and the whole area, even though our guy tries to stop him from going out for the time being. Music. Meanwhile, our guy stays with Mikion, and she tells him that everything went dark before her eyes, and she couldn't process what happened. Hearing that, a chill runs down his spine as he realizes what's happening and insists she use her ability, Blink, immediately, whenever something like that occurs, because they have already started to move. He also assures her that he'll send a self-defense kit soon, and asks her to be very careful from now on. There are only 20 days left until the apocalypse arrives. Music. There's a famous meme from the past. If 5 people get together, one of them will be useless. Saboteurs exist everywhere in the world, especially music in Sura. In Sura, there are patches for interference. The developers respond to reports but don't music capture the saboteurs. In Sura, saboteurs join a team acting like normal players, but then they lure the group to an area full of monsters, music, causing the entire team to be annihilated. They approach beginners with kindness, only to kill them later and steal their belongings. Saboteurs have done all sorts of things to make teams fight among themselves. They made the game, which was already not famous, fall within just 1 year. The users were reduced to 4 because Sanjo's team took care of the remaining saboteurs. Our guy wonders why he's explaining all of this, and then summarizes everything he's discovered so far. The awakened communities have united after Guido's shootout. They aren't just sharing information, but also hatching plans. He stops mid-sentence upon discovering that people are also selling his videos. As the protagonist browses further on the site, he learns that his teammate Dyson was a saboteur. He's stunned to see the thumbnail for a video of Dajo, claiming it was uploaded by Kimbuki. Now Sanjo wonders if that saboteur is trying to lure people in with an edited video. Surprisingly, he applauds Dahu for his ingenuity, as he's praised for his way of thinking. He stretches, as he decides, to train more so he can face those kinds of people. Over the next 13 days, whenever he had time, our hero constantly learned about using weapons and techniques that could be applied in actual combat, thanks to an online survival channel. On the other hand, during that period, he saw monsters attacking, even raiding hideouts. Furthermore, there are a number of strategies and weapons that don't account for the wire disease. Therefore, after training for those 13 days, Sanjo is finally ready to choose a main weapon, one that can be used if the wire disease appears, and is also useful in both combat against people and for taking out monsters. He checks his tool bag and finds an Indian war club, a wooden slingshot, ochre clay beads, and a handmade stone axe. However, none of them fit his criteria. So, at first, our protagonist decides to try the slingshot. It has great utility in many respects. However, the ochre clay beads are ancient, as their power is weak. He then decides to use the Indian war club. He reflects that once you accept the existence of the wire disease, there's no need to worry. The easiest way to eliminating a zombie is to destroy the spores living inside the skull with a blunt weapon. Remember that the first item he decided to buy upon reaching level 10 was a blunt-type weapon, an ebony wood club, and that's why it was essential for him to increase his dexterity. But now our guy wonders if the Indian war mace is also good against people. He thinks it's ambiguous because it would be difficult to face a psychic awakened with it. He knows that in a survival life, killing a human grants 50 points. The killer system, which required duels to the death with nearby players and registered you as a killer, prevented the abuse of player killing, although there will be many people who will eliminate users just to get more points, even with penalties. Meanwhile, he completely destroys the mannequin with his Indian war mace. He decides to avoid those types of players until he finishes collecting items and skills. After training hard, our hero wipes his sweat as he plans to dismantle the tent completely, but he stops mid-sentence upon hearing a wolf's howl coming from nearby. He is surprised, wondering if one has been injured near the hideout. Later, Sanjo finds the wolf, which is larger than normal. Our guy could even ride it. The system reveals its name, Grey Wolf. But upon observing it closely, he notices it's not breathing. He wonders if it's a stray wolf, or one that came near his hideout after being attacked. To get more information, the protagonist starts to check its wounds. However, out of nowhere, a young wolf cub hits him from behind. Sanjo discovers that the dead wolf is actually the mother of that cub, which stands between him and its mother to protect her. He gets confused because he can't use force to separate the little wolf from its mother. He grabs a shovel as he decides to bury the dead wolf quickly. As he starts digging a hole, he thinks that if that wolf was a monster, it will become a bone crawler, and if it's not, then it will attract more monsters. After a while, the hole is completely bada. He digs while the wolf cub sleeps beside its mother, which reminds our boy of his younger self and Monchi, the dog he raised in his childhood. Then, he takes the little wolf and explains that its mother will rest here. He adds that it can visit her whenever it wants, as he plans to make a doggy door in the hideout's door. Then, Sanjo gives the wolf a piece of meat, promising to make sure it never goes hungry until it's grown up. In return, he asks for its help with its incredible sense of smell. When he asks if it's okay, the little wolf happily responds with a soft sound. Then, our protagonist gives it a name, Dingo, as he pets its head. A system window appears, notifying him that he has successfully communicated with the Grey Wolf, and that this wolf, Dingo, will be considered his property. With that, 19 days remain until the apocalypse. Sanjo is busy training Dingo. He instructs it to repeat the actions he has just taught it. When our boy asks for its paw, Dingo places it on its owner's hand. Then, the wolf runs as instructed, sits, lies down, and stays quiet, obeying every command our hero gives it. Finally, he tosses a large piece of bone into the air, and Dingo catches it with a leap. Our protagonist feels satisfied seeing how fast it learns, likely because it comes from another world. He reflects on its excellent scent tracking abilities and, in his mind, considers Dingo a stroke of luck and a blessing. He dotes on his adorable companion with a kiss and starts to say something, but his phone rings. When Sanjo answers, He sees a message from John suggesting he search the web for the room. Later, our hero finds an article about a person called the First Superhuman, someone claiming that zombies and monsters will soon appear and bring disaster. That article has hit the #1 spot. In the comments, people are skeptical, believing the broadcast channel only did it for views. He notices that there are many who know anything about eras, but the awakened are clearly alarmed in the comment section. He finds it funny how some get annoyed when little information is shared, and others get angry when what they know becomes public. Then, our protagonist wonders how the government will react. He's aware that people are organizing protests about superpowers and the impact, but he decides not to get involved in that kind of stuff. Music. Although he implies that the government will eventually act when the second omen occurs. Music, the hobgoblin event. Sanjo decides not to waste a moment. He tells Dingo that from today, they will begin their exploration. Deep down, our boy knows that thorough preparation is the only solution, and Dingo seems enthusiastic. Later, they enter the portal world, music, and Sanjo reflects on why he chose interdimensional exploration with Dingo. He lets him smell a small bag and orders him to find it. The first reason for this type of exploration is to prepare for the upcoming hobgoblin event, as he needs Dingo to properly memorize the scent of goblins. Music. Meanwhile, Dingo barks, having found the meat in Mard. The bushes, and our hero feels proud that he tracked it with just a residual scent. The second reason is to test if Dingo can remain music calm in actual combat and follow orders. So he gives him a signal, and the wolf immediately lunges with great precision. Dingo hunts a rabbit on the grass, and our protagonist praises him. The third reason for the exploration is to confirm if hunting is possible in the other world. Sanjo approaches Dingo to inspect his prey, observes the dead rabbit, and notices its strong claws and large size. Afterward, music, our boy and his little wolf continue exploring. As they advance, he wonders how Dingo's cognition would look as stats. He decides to head to the valley to check for himself. Then a system window appears notifying him that Dingo's health has increased by 1, recalling that his own health stat as Kimbafo was 170. Our hero is impressed with how fast Dingo is growing. Denly, Dingo starts coughing, and our protagonist runs to offer him water. He reminds his companion not to, he must go into the forest alone. Dingo drinks, while our boy spots a large green pepper nearby, and wonders if that was what he ate. The system reveals it's called a bull pepper. Sanjo is happy to find it in the forest and praises Dingo, promising him lots of treats later. He digs to harvest the bull pepper. Music. They then prepare for their last hunt. Both of them sit on rocks by the edge of a stream. Music. This time, Dingo doesn't detect any strange smells or unusual presences. Deep down, our boy reflects that the red trout aren't monsters and don't music grant points or items. However, he believes it's essential for young Dingo to gain experience, which is valuable. After hunting the red trout, our protagonist decides to finish the preparations for Phase 2 and then return home. The next day, his entire restaurant is demolished. The person in charge of the demolition company tells our hero to contact him music within 3 days if there are any problems with the repairs. He sincerely thanks the manager for working so early in the morning. Taking a deep breath, he feels a bit sad seeing the destroyed place, but he knows music. It was necessary. Upon entering, Sanjo assumes that after the apocalypse, those who don't become zombies will probably loot stores. He admits he would do the same, so he has no right to complain. As he starts cleaning, John appears behind him, looking at the empty room. John mentions that he also left music, only the minimum necessary equipment. When our boy wonders aloud why John is there, John flicks him with his fingers on the forehead. Music annoyed that our hero left the day before without a word. Now, John says he came just to check if Sanjo was still alive. Meanwhile, Music Dingo watches John with cold eyes. John wonders aloud if Sanjo always had a dog, but he explains that one is gone. He adds that this is his new pet, and John calls the wolf adorable. Then, Sanjo Music asks again why he's there, and John repeats that he just came to see him. Our hero doesn't believe him. Music. Then, John shares another reason for his visits. He admits he was worried, but also reveals that he has found the people behind the attack on Mikion. With that, there are only 17 days left until the apocalypse arrives. Sitting with John, Sanjo Music learns that the group organized by Koljun, the man known for always wearing a hat, is actually Music, targeting Mikon. John also mentions that the tow truck driver, whom our guy dislikes, is connected to that group. He points towards the mountains in front of them and asks if the area near the base of the mountain is where the redevelopment process was halted, adding that their hideout is Music, located there. However, our protagonist is curious how John was able to discover all that. and John explains that the clues simply lined up. He states that Anjinong, the one who can levitate, had recently appeared on a variety show, and John asked him directly. Music Hin revealed that he had met with Koljun's group before, but that all its members were unpleasant, so Anjin refused to stay with them due to personality differences. Music. After what happened to Mikon, all the women in the group started to leave. When asked why they were leaving, those women just said they had received offers from other groups of awakened ones. John Music asks for his opinion, and our hero replies that, unlike Mikion, the other female members must have been tricked into joining. John then suddenly reveals that his group is now down to 4 members, including himself. This revelation stuns our guy, who remembers that there were 20 members just a few days before. John doesn't give any more details, but he knows that now his group only has 2 awakened ones. Sanjo struggles to process it, remembering that they did favors for those members who still decided to leave. However, John remains calm, telling our protagonist that's just how things are. Those people were just looking out for themselves. Beyond that, John says he's worried about little Hun, debating whether or not to contact his ex-wife. Our boy keeps a straight face, knowing their situations aren't the same, and wants to know if his own way of thinking is correct. He wants to ask John something that's been on his mind. Our protagonist wonders if the apocalypse really comes, and people start to threaten John. What would he do? Before he can finish, John cuts him off, insisting he wouldn't hesitate to kill him. John says he has a principle against harming others, but in a lawless disaster, there would be no other choice. He believes that in such times, there's no room for evil to survive. Then, John asks with curiosity why Sanjo would ask such a question, noting it doesn't seem like him. Our boy doesn't give a real answer, and just then, someone screams for help. The sound is coming from our hero's cell phone. John wonders if it's the sound of a lost child, but Sanjo checks the map and asks John to look after Dingo for a bit. Elsewhere, Mikion is surrounded by bad guys and has apparently sent a distress signal. The tow truck agent, Anen and Ha, mock Mikion, asking her why she is making such a big deal and demanding that she come down. In response, Mikion is standing on the edge of a rooftop, shouting that she already refused, but they followed her anyway. She demands to know why they are doing this to her. Anne asks her to reconsider, but Kim Seol and Mayon step forward, insisting on handling things their way, and pointing out that, being in a redevelopment zone, no one will come to Mikion's rescue. Kinchi tells her not to waste her energy and reminds her that everyone has traits, and then starts a countdown. Meanwhile, our boy is preparing his weapons, hidden in an alley. On 2, he launches the slingshot at Chinchul, and on 3, Chinchul is hit. All the group members are confused, trying to figure out who is attacking them. Suddenly, our protagonist appears with a helmet and steps forward to attack Onin, while debating whether or not to reveal his identity. Indian War. Music. Sanjo hits Omen hard and immediately lunges at another member. Music. This one emits a black energy, which makes our hero suspect he possesses a vision-blocking trait, but even so, Sanjo manages to hit him. Now, our hero is breathing heavily, and when he sees Mikion, she warns him to be careful. Music. He turns and sees Kim Ciel coming toward him with a bat that strikes and damages his helmet. Sanjo is shocked by the destructive force of the blow. At the same time, Chin-Chi realizes who he is. Music, but our guy is lost in thought. Recognizing that Chin-Chi's offensive trait is music extremely powerful, even in the initial stages, Chin-Chi vows to our protagonist that he will go music all out, and his teammates stand up to back him, determined to unleash their full strength despite not being awakened. Omen charges our hero with electricity, taunting as he gets closer. Sanjo doesn't know what to do. His opponent is showing all his skills, and he wonders if he should use the dimensional gate. Just as Omen is about to attack, Dingo appears and bites Omen's arm. John comes out of an alley, asking if this is really appropriate in broad daylight, and suggests that the group should leave if they don't want trouble, announcing music that he is calling 911. All the group members decide to retreat for now. John comments that they seem weak, yet they act with such arrogance. Then, Music Mikion comes down and immediately grabs our hero's head to see if he's okay. She notices that his helmet is cracked, and John offers to carry him on his back. Seeing them worried, Sanjo's thoughts return to his old companions from the game. When Mikion suggests going to the hospital, our protagonist turns around and insists that he's fine. He then asks John if they can include Mikion in their music group. John says there's no problem, as long as Mikion doesn't object, and she happily accepts. The hero leaves, saying he has some things to do while John and Mikion Music are left wondering why he's acting so strangely. Upon returning home, our hero focuses on controlling his emotions and plan the second stage of his preparations. His sudden departure was unavoidable, and seeing Johnny and Mikion together made him feel he could trust them with the secret of his abilities, but the decision had already been made. To make the most of the dimensional gate, our guy must level up quickly and focus on gaining skills and collecting items. The phrase "overwhelm them with item power" resonates more strongly after fighting the mountain gang. He realizes that if he prepares for the apocalypse as planned, there will be a 3-level difference or more, which will make the monsters that respawn near him stronger and make it harder to team up with his 2 companions. He keeps working until he finishes installing a wood stove in his hideout, knowing it will help him sleep well at night. Dingo also loves the stove, sleeping peacefully beside it. Now, our protagonist only has a few things left to install when they arrive, and the initial setup of his shelter will be almost complete. Determined, he decides to stay up all night. With that, there are 16 days left until the apocalypse arrives. A news anchor updates viewers on the previously observed asteroid. According to the report, the HSA has announced that Yoon has entered the midpoint of the solar system. The HSA is closely monitoring its trajectory, but the meteor was split by Jupiter's gravity. In response, the head of the Meteor Observation Department, Thomas Chandler, informs the public that the 2 fragments, Yunhambi Alpha and Beta, have no chance of approaching Earth. However, Sanjo recalls that, on day 5, just 5 days before the apocalypse, Yunnan Beta was the first to fall. It landed near a Russian ship in the ocean, and the resulting tsunami washed the ship to the port of Ganchin, which led to the first appearance of zombies in Korea. The anchor continues reporting on the shooting of Guido, President Han Pike, who hasn't left his residence in a week, prompting the leaders of the opposition party to issue a joint statement requesting a hearing. Some people are now saying that this is related to the rumors about the awakened and the impending disaster. Upon hearing this, our guy admits to himself that it really is the end of the world. He thinks it's a good thing that the media is finally showing interest in these topics, and concludes that it will now be harder for the awakened to commit crimes. Music. He then decides to check the community's reaction on his laptop. While browsing the comment section, he sees that people have shared very strong opinions about the situation. Coincidentally, music, he sees a comment from My Dream, and wonders if that person has been active all this time. My Dream was a player known for being kind to beginners, and Sanjo's group had played with him a few times. The ambition of My Dream was to build a bunker, and if our hero didn't have music, a portal, he might have been tempted to join. He decides not to sign any contracts, unless his veteran friends join My Dream, but he bookmarks the comment to check it later. After closing his laptop, our protagonist looks forward to building his second shelter. The next day, Sanjo stands in front of his hideout and realizes that it's possible to go 2 nights in a row without sleep. Music. He feels exhausted, but seeing the finished exterior gives him energy. It's time to figure out how to use the electricity generated music by the solar panels. In simple terms, there are several wiring steps to make music, the electricity compatible with his electronic devices. Luckily, when he plugs his phone into charge, it works. He throws his arms up in joy, announcing that he has built the foundation for survival in this world. Music. For the first time in a long time, he feels a rush of dopamine. Yesterday, he also collected luminous and ignition stones, and after further digging he found a mineral harder and sharper than obsidian called Maris. Although it's currently useless, he still considers it better than nothing. He decides to install LED lights later, but before sleeping, he needs to organize the food supplies in the basement. Suddenly, a loud noise from Dingo catches his attention. Rushing out, Sanjo finds Dingo facing mutilated wolves, a type of monster he recognizes from Sura. He wonders why these creatures, which normally live in high-altitude areas, are here. Observing Dingo's fury, our hero suspects that they might be the wolves that killed Dingo's mother. He tries to calm Dingo, but deep down he knows he can't defeat all the wolves right now. If he moves to get a better weapon, he risks exposing his back and being attacked, which could be fatal. Therefore, our protagonist decides to focus on making the alpha wolf retreat, knowing the others will likely follow. He observes the wolves' extremely cautious behavior and notices they only move when the alpha does first. He then considers if they could coordinate an attack. He also notes that these wolves are extremely sensitive to smells. Luckily, Sanjo has pepper spray with him. If he manages to spray it on the alpha, he can drive it from the shelter. Sweat runs down his face as he assesses the risk of being attacked before he can act. He wonders if there's a way to distract it and attack with the spray. Suddenly, an idea strikes him, and he believes it's logically possible. Determined to defend the shelter he built with his own hands, our boy prepares himself. He instantly throws a knife at the alpha, but it dodges. The alpha then leaps at our hero, but as it gets close, Sanjo opens the portal and, seizing the opportunity, sprays the animal. The alpha loses its composure, and then our protagonist stabs the knife into its eye. With that, the wolf pack retreats. Our hero sits down, having narrowly escaped death. Dingo comes over to check on him, and Sanjo pats Dingo's head in gratitude. He promises Dingo that he will avenge his mother in the future. With that, only 15 days remain until the apocalypse arrives.